today. I can't shake this shit, son. Yeah, it don't be too long. And then, man, I can admit it, I'm more aware of it. Yeah, it don't be too long. I can't even make it up the stairs without you holding my hand. What type of shit is that? I'm a man. What the fuck going on?
Man, I done been on tour. I done in downtown New Orleans. I'm talking about hop out the car, run down that street by myself, no security watching me. I ain't worried about nobody. That clip hit the internet and the comments went crazy. Not about the tour, not about the pardon, not about the music. People were locked in on how he was moving, the rapid speech, the jump from calm and almost grandiose to suddenly yelling, like something flipped without warning. The question that's followed NBA Youngboy for nearly a decade started circulating again. The one his fans have asked people to stop asking and his critics have never stopped raising. To understand why that clip hit the way it did, you have to understand where this story actually started. Kentrell Gaulden was born October 20th, 1999, in Baton Rouge. He broke his neck as a child and wore a neck brace through some of his most formative years. His father received a 55-year prison sentence before Kentrell was even born, and he was largely raised by his grandmother in conditions where poverty wasn't a concept, it was the home. He became a father at 16, the same year he caught his first serious felony charge for firing shots at two men in Baton Rouge. Charged as an adult, pleading guilty to aggravated assault with a firearm in 2017. The music came fast. By 18, he was already one of the most streamed artists on YouTube in the country, a position he held for 5 consecutive years. His fans didn't just listen, they lived inside the music, and a lot of that connection came from how specific and unfiltered it was. That specificity is part of what makes the substance conversation around him different from typical rap braggadocio. In tracks like Drug Addiction and Blazion, he described his relationship with pills and lean in detail that read less like a persona and more like reporting. He's rapped about feeling no pain when he's high, about drinking through entire nights as just what the evening looked like. People close to the music could feel the difference between an artist describing a lifestyle and an artist describing his actual nights. That pattern showed up outside the music too. In February 2024, while under house arrest in Utah, he posted a photo of himself lying on the ground surrounded by prescription pills. The caption read, "That's why he doesn't pick up his phone when it rings." The comments filled with concern rather than outrage, people who recognized what that image was communicating without him having to say it directly. A few months earlier, in July 2023, a post on his cat's Instagram account described watching him in a way that was scary to observe and used the hashtag #help, with a follow-up reply that went viral among his fanbase, describing a serious physical symptom consistent with the kind of internal strain heavy substance use can cause on the kidneys and liver. Youngboy himself addressed the broader narrative directly on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast during his house arrest period, acknowledging the public image people had of him and revealing he'd recently returned from a short stint in rehab. He was 24. He didn't go into detail about the program, but the fact that it happened and that he chose to mention it publicly said something on its own. In a separate conversation, he acknowledged the reputation and said he wanted to cut back, while also being clear he wasn't entirely sure he wanted to stop. The legal record adds real weight to all of this. After his 2017 felony conviction, any future gun charge automatically became a federal matter. In September 2020, police responding to a call near a Baton Rouge property where he was filming a music video found multiple firearms and the same category of substance he'd been describing in his music for years. He was arrested, along with 15 others. By March 2021, the case had moved to federal court, and FBI agents arrested him in Los Angeles, adding new weapons charges. He spent months in custody before being granted bail and house arrest at a property in Mill Creek, Utah, where he'd remained confined for years, unable to tour or perform, recording music and getting married from inside that house. In February 2024, federal prosecutors filed a motion describing what they called non-compliant behavior, specifically using a controlled substance in violation of his house arrest terms. The filing stated he had told his supervising officer directly that he had no intention of stopping. 47 days later, things escalated significantly. Cache County deputies arrested him on 63 felony charges, connected to an alleged large-scale prescription fraud operation across multiple Utah pharmacies. centered on the same substance category at the heart of everything else in this story. According to the arrest report, the scheme involved callers impersonating doctors using stolen credentials to call in fraudulent prescriptions under fake elderly patient names, with associates picking them up at pharmacies across several counties. The operation unraveled after pharmacists grew suspicious of inconsistencies in the calls and confirmed with the real doctors that no such prescriptions had been authorized. Investigators traced a vehicle used in the pickups back to him, and a search of his property turned up a prescription bottle under one of the fake patient names along with a firearm. He was taken into full federal custody, ending the house arrest arrangement. In December 2024, he pleaded guilty to 2 federal gun counts and was sentenced to 23 months with credit for time served, plus 5 years of federal probation. The Utah prescription fraud charges were resolved as part of the broader agreement. He was released to a residential reentry facility in March 2025, completing his transition that April. Then, on May 28, 2025, President Trump signed his pardon, part of a broader batch of clemency actions. The White House cited his age, his upbringing, and specific concerns about how the 2020 Baton Rouge arrest had been handled, including officers later fired or under investigation in connection with that incident. The pardon removed the federal conviction entirely and eliminated all 5 years of probation, no supervising officer, no drug testing, no monitoring of any kind. For the first time since before his 2017 plea, he was completely unmonitored. What followed commercially was historic. The mass tour launched September 2025 and ran 42 cities over nearly 3 months, eventually grossing $70 million and setting the record as the highest-grossing debut headlining tour by a rapper in U.S. history, surpassing Travis Scott's Astroworld tour in revenue. By any commercial measure, this was the peak of his career. But during that same stretch, other things were surfacing that read very differently. In December 2025, in the middle of that tour run, he posted that he wanted to drop the album and then said something that alarmed fans enough that the comments turned into people checking on him rather than celebrating. He followed up writing that his life looked perfect on paper but that he wasn't happy, that the issue was internal rather than external. Then in March 2026, a public dispute with his ex over their son escalated quickly online, and within hours he deactivated both his Instagram and Twitter entirely. Notable for someone who'd used social media as his primary connection to the world during years of confinement. That's the context behind the recent clip. The rapid shifts in energy, the jump from relaxed to suddenly heated without an obvious trigger. People who've followed this story for years aren't reading it as a man simply talking tough for the camera. They're reading it against everything documented above. His own lyrics, the 2024 photo, the supervising officer's statement that he refused to stop, the prescription fraud case built around sustained access to a specific substance, and now a year of total legal freedom with nobody required to check on him at all. It's worth being honest about the other side of this too. Youngboy has been famous since he was a teenager, watched and judged before his brain even finished developing. He has 13 children, has spent most of his adult life under some form of legal restriction, and somehow kept producing at a pace most artists with full freedom never match. He got married, built a tour that broke records, and has talked openly, in his own way, about pain that the success hasn't resolved. That December tweet about not being happy despite everything looking perfect is honestly the most direct thing he's said about that gap. None of this means anyone watching from outside can diagnose what's happening through a phone screen, and it's worth resisting the urge to draw a hard conclusion from one clip. What's true is that the public record, his music, the court filings, the people closest to him speaking up, paints a consistent picture over nearly a decade, and the recent removal of every external check that used to exist is exactly why people who followed this story are paying closer attention right now. Not because they want to see him fall, but because a lot of people who grew up on his music genuinely want him to be okay. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this kind of breakdown is useful to you, subscribe for more.